What is up, guys? Bobgar here, and it is closing thoughts time for 5-ticket Mardu Warriors in Modern. Pretty cool that we managed to make a 5-ticket deck for the 10-ticket deck show, and also pretty cool that it managed to go 4-1. I was actually pretty happy with this deck. I do want to talk a little bit about matches outside of my 5 matches that I recorded, and also other people's experience with it before I get too hyped on the deck. So I did end up playing, I think in all testing and playing games, I played 8 matches total. I had a really busy week, so I didn't actually have a chance to test nearly as much as I do for normal decks, but did 8 matches total. I lost a total of 2 of them. The other match I lost was to Hexproof Boogles. That's a very hard deck for our deck to beat, I think, mostly because of its life gain. So that did kind of run us over. And the deck definitely has some weaknesses. I mean, I think it's a deck that's built very, like I think I said in the first set, min-maxed. Like, there's some matchups where it just feels like you can't lose, and there's some matchups you're just going to get dumpstered. That's the way it felt a little bit, but I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was pretty neat. Somebody else posted on my YouTube channel mentioning they built it, and they went about 4-4. But 4-4 obviously isn't quite as good as we ended up going. Maybe that's more realistic for the deck. I don't know. Maybe I just happened to get lucky. But in the games I played, I felt like it was very powerful, and we managed to win a lot, and quite frankly, a lot more than I was expecting. I was expecting it to be like, oh, we'll take a game off a couple people, or take a few matches, but not do quite as well as we did. So I was actually pretty impressed with the deck. But simple aggro decks tend to do that. You tend to win. You know, there's a lot of matches that you can just win. We also got a little lucky that we didn't run into that many top tier decks. I mean, a couple of the decks we ran into I would consider top tier, but we also ran into a bunch of things that were a little bit janky. I think it showed its ability in what I predicted in the original deck tech, that it was pretty good against creature decks and kind of like Burny aggro decks, just because of the Glorybound Initiates and then the Dragon Slayers in the sideboard, or whatever the heck they're called. I don't remember what their name is, just to give us a little bit of lifelink. And actually, when I was making that, I didn't realize how well that would combo with our hasty guys, but our hasty guys really helped that too, because it meant Burn didn't have as many chances to just murder them. We could just put in a Glorybound Initiate with haste and give it +1/+0 and then swing with it. Maybe even give it double strike with Arashin and make it give lifelink, and then suddenly we're gaining 5 to 10 life, and it's pretty good. So yeah, I was still pretty happy with the deck, even though it definitely has some weaknesses. One of the big things a lot of people called out were the fact that it has no removal, and I do think it's probably better to put in removal. A lot of the reason I don't run removal is just it's 3 colors, and we're running a lot of lands that don't tap for colored mana when we're playing non-creature spells. Especially Ancient Ziggurat literally can't even tap for colorless when we're playing non-creature spells. So the only color we can really play non-creature spells in is white reasonably. Like, everything else is too low a percentage color for us that it's very likely we'll just get it stuck in hand and not be able to play it. So that's the reason I didn't really even try to run any. I did try some white cards. I didn't actually get to the point of testing with them, but I did look at some, and it's just the options weren't very good. It's just like Oust and Condemn. Just, it feels like it goes against our game plan because it gives our opponent life, and neither of them are super effective anyway. And I felt like it was better just to go with the all-in creature aggro package. So that's what I decided to go with there. And yeah, like I said, I think it worked out pretty well, but I certainly understand the criticism there. It makes the deck weak to a lot of things. So certainly something to think about. And I think if you could afford the Path to Exiles, which are a little priced out of these budget decks, putting in Path to Exiles might make the deck slightly better over some of our 2-drops. Maybe Crop Captain rather, or something like that. All right, so that was our record. Like I said, I was pretty happy with it. I might throw some clips of the Boogles game in here. I actually played it because I let my computer go to sleep, and I walked back to my computer and I hit space to wake it up, and apparently I had the play button on focus, so it just instantly started the game. And I was like, well, I feel bad about ditching out of a game with somebody, and heck, I'll just record it because I had the recording stuff all set up anyway. I just gone downstairs to eat dinner or something. So I might put some clips right now. Well, I've already done all 5 of my matches, but when I booted back up my computer, apparently it had the play button on focus and it started a game up, so I might as well record one more match. Well, it's going to be a hard matchup in general. He has the Daybreak Coronet. So I think, given Daybreak Coronet, I think we're going to lose here. Main core, okay, I'm just going to scoop. He went all the way down to 5. We'll see if he has his Slippery Boggle. He does not. Has a Slippery Bogle. Did he not have that last turn? Let's destroy this. He's on a 2-turn clock, but like I said, he has a lot of live draws. He really wants his life gain. Oh, did he get? He got his life gain. All right, he is now winning unless we top deck well. No, it doesn't kill me. I still have a chance. He goes up by 7. I think there are certain draws in my deck that win here. Yeah, I've got to do way more than 12, in fact. I was about ready to skip it, and we still got there. We got the Fragmentize, but no lands to play it. We only have 1 land in general. Oh my god, do I keep it? Do I keep it? So risky, but so bad to mulligan here, especially with a Fragmentize in hand. I'm on the draw. I'm going to try it. Slippery Bogle. Seems good. Does he have it? Looks like he does. He has Daybreak, I bet. Yep, that's the one to have. All right, that puts me in a hard position. Give it a Daybreak Coronet. He literally has another one. Alright, well that does it. GG. And yeah, let's move on and look at the winners and losers in the deck, the things that did well and the things that didn't. It's a little hard to pick favorites when everything is so similar and so kind of low impact for the most part. I picked the ones that I thought in our games ended up having the biggest impact and kind of won us games or just felt somewhat bad to have in hand. I'm going to start with the losers and then move on to the winners. Dragon Hunter is fine. It was just our 2/1 1-drop with the least relevant ability. We never ran into dragons. It was really just a vanilla 2/1 for our purposes, which isn't bad. But when you look at the other ones, Bloodsoaked Champion, I don't know if we actually ever got him back, but it certainly would have been useful sometimes to get him back. Mardu Woe-Reaper gained us incidental life. It might have ended up being the most useful of them, honestly, just because the incidental life gain was pretty good against things like Bird. Zurgo Bellstriker getting the extra point of toughness. Again, not usually important, but still a nice thing to have and can be important. So yeah, his Dragon Hunter's ability just didn't feel very good. Goblin Bushwhacker makes the X list just because it requires double red, and double red was actually, even though we have a lot of lands that can tap for any color, it was still pretty hard to get double red sometimes. And sometimes you'd also be in awkward positions where you really needed like 3 red because you wanted to play Zurgo into Goblin Bushwhacker or something or whatever. He definitely was the hardest to cast, and that made him get the X here. I don't know if he's bad in the deck, but we might want to change our mana base slightly or something to make it easier to cast him. The last one is Honored Crop Captain. I don't actually know if this one deserves an X. It was pretty good for us in a lot of cases. I think it just gets it because it's basically a strictly worth Chief of the Edge in the deck. A little bit slow. Definitely not our ideal 2-drop. It's in there because it has a good effect and we needed more 2-drop creatures, so it's fine. It's just not exciting, so that's why it gets the X. So yeah, pretty weak X's. I mean, honestly, the most impactful one is probably Goblin Bushwhacker, just not being able to play him a lot of the time. But I wasn't really that unhappy with any of them. They were just kind of like, they weren't as good as I had hoped. And then moving on to the checks. Bloodshed Rager won us a bunch of games. That's why it gets the check. The menace ability really threw opponents for a loop. Some people just didn't seem to be paying attention to the fact that it gave all my creatures menace, or maybe they didn't know what menace meant. But there was at least a few games where people lined up blocks in such a way that it was obvious that they either didn't realize they had menace or didn't know how menace worked because the blocks didn't work. But yeah, basically that let us push through damage when we needed to, and that helped us win, especially kind of mirror match aggro things. Like against Merfolk, it felt really important. Glorybound Initiate is in there because the life gain ended up being super important against aggro and tempo decks, and we ran into a bunch of those. Like Merfolk, gaining that life back in the first game helped a lot. I should have exerted him in the second game, like somebody mentioned in the comments. I'm still not 100% sure my decision was wrong. It would have led to a different state, and it would have led to my opponent playing differently, which I don't know if it would have really led us to a win either, because it's just like he would have waited till the turn after I exerted it to bounce it instead of doing it that turn. I would have instead played a Lord down earlier and gotten more damage. So it would have changed the whole game quite a bit in terms of how my opponent played it, but certainly in retrospect, if I exerted it, I would have gained a bunch of life, and that might have kept me in the game long enough to win. I'm not sure. So he was definitely an all-star, and exerting him just for the +1 damage and a bunch of life gain often felt important and good. And then finally, Arashin Foremost was kind of the powerhouse of the deck. Giving things double strike made combat very hard for our opponents. It really allows us to force through damage and trade up against opponent's big creatures. Like if your opponent is playing a 3 or 4 drop and you swing in with a 2/1 that you've given double strike and it's gotten +1/+0 from Chief of the Edge or something, you know, you're really swinging with almost a 6/1, and then they're probably already a little low on life. They feel priced into blocking it with their much better creature, and then you trade your 1/1 for their 4/4 or 5/5 or whatever. I mean, I don't think that specific instance happened a lot to us, but that's the idea. Like, that's why it was good in our deck. It forced our opponents into places where they had no option but to chump block our guys or trade with our guys in situations where they didn't really want to be trading with our guys and things like that. And I felt like it was just very powerful in the deck. The one that didn't get a check mark that maybe should have is Chief of the Edge. It is definitely another powerhouse in the deck. It's our probably most important Lord 2-drop thing, and I say that while giving 2 other things the check marks. I feel like the other 2 are more impactful and unique, but Chief of the Edge just gives the whole deck that extra point of power that it needs to win in a lot of matchups. So that's the one that like barely missed the check mark. I think that was the one where I was like, do I give it to Chief of the Edge or do I give it to Glorybound Initiate? I do think that it might have overperformed in our matches. So if we played a different set of 5 matches, Chief of the Edge very well might get that check mark. The reason I gave it to Glorybound Initiate is literally I felt like Glorybound Initiate won us some games and helped us come back in some games that I didn't think we had any way of winning, and then we had that gain us, like against the Naya Burn deck game 1, like gaining life off of Glorybound Initiate. I guess we didn't technically because I think they scooped in response to it, but they were like, oh, he's going to gain 5 life. I guess I lose, basically. Glorybound Initiate really pushed us over the top in a couple matches, so that's the reason I give it a check. All right, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about upgrades. There aren't a ton of ways to upgrade the deck just because it's kind of like a cheap warrior creature deck. The obvious upgrade is Cavern of Souls over Unclaimed Territory. It's basically the same card, except Cavern of Souls lets you put the creature in uncounterably, which gives you a pretty big leg up in some matchups against things like Death Shadow can run some counter spells, and then obviously a lot of control decks will run a bunch of counter spells. Those are really the 2 that I can think of in the current meta where you run into a lot of counter spells. Maybe Storm runs a few, but it's really mostly those decks. Concealed Courtyard and Inspiring Vantage, just pretty much for us strictly better than the Painlands. We were running the Painlands because we had to, but they do actually cause quite a bit of damage. And in things like the Naya Burn matchup, there was definitely a concern that I would lose too much life from my Painlands to get the win. So I felt like that change would be pretty important. Then removal, like I said, it's probably worth it to run Path to Exiles. I think they are, you know, they would be quite good in the deck, and I think the deck really does want a little bit of removal. I don't think it needs a lot, just because, like I said, it's going to be able to swing past and trade up with a lot of our opponent's creatures if you can get things like Arashin Foremost out, and just pumping the power allows us to trade with a lot of creatures. So I think having a couple points of removal is probably good. And then we could have had a stronger sideboard if we had a higher budget. We're in white. White is our main sideboard color, and you know we could easily bring in things like Stony Silence and Rest in Peace. Obviously, we didn't because those are out of budget, but both of those would be pretty good. And I'm sure there are other sideboard cards that we could think about that might be good. And another removal that might be possible too, other than Path to Exile, which is even easier to cast, is Dismember. So that's another option in the removal slot, I guess. But overall, yeah, I was happy with the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. I feel a little bad for losing the one match I did because I think I literally lost it because I didn't I tried to read the card that he played the first time, but somehow I didn't get that you took a damage for all attacking creatures. I think I thought it was just for every, like, if you paid that, you lose a life or you lose a couple life, or I missed the all attacking creatures thing. If I had thought about that card and really read what it did, there's no way I would have attacked with his little 1/1 tokens he kept giving me, and if I hadn't done that, I might have won that match. So it easily could have been a 5-0 if I had been paying a little bit more attention. If that is going to happen, like that's kind of the advantage of playing a rogue deck like that is, or like Warriors for that matter, is people don't really know what it does. So they don't know how to play around it. So that's always like a little advantage you have where they don't know if they should path your 2/1 that you play on turn 1. And if you're just like a straight aggro deck, maybe it's worth it for them just to lightning bolt it. But you know, maybe it's not. Maybe they really want to wait for your Chief of the Edge or your Arashin Foremost to lightning bolt it, and they just don't have that state of knowing the deck well enough to know what you can do and what you're going to do. So that's the deck. Those were the games. it's closing thoughts. It's all done. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun playing it, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Hey guys, Bobgar here. I just really wanted to quickly say, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you enjoy my content in general and would like to see more of it, subscribe. I'll be coming out with more content in the future. And please leave me comments and let me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, both in terms of production and in terms of my play and my deck building and all that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time.